Hey everyone, welcome to another daily cinephile vlog. We're talking about an Amazon Prime release today. This one stars Snoop Dogg, and it's so cleverly titled The Underdoggs with 2 G's. You know, to match the dog in Snoop Dogg, if you understand, Underdogs. It's taken dog from Snoop Dogg. It's genius. Well, I mean, Snoop Dogg doesn't play himself in the movie, though. He plays a former wide receiver who isn't named Snoop Dogg, but the name of the movie references the actor's name, Snoop Dogg. But also in the movie, they named the team Underdogs with the 2 G's. But there's no reference to... That's just a reference to Snoop Dogg. But, like, his character name is Jason with 2 J's. Because his last name starts with a J. I can't remember his last name. Anyway, the point is, this movie's not that good. I mean, have you seen The Mighty Ducks before? Then you've seen this movie. Snoop Dogg gets into a car accident, and because of that, a wreck that he caused, he needs to do community service. While doing community service, he sees a local kids football team practicing, and one of the moms happens to be a former classmate of his from when he was in high school. So he comes up with the scheme of becoming their coach, a la Mighty Ducks. They even reference Mighty Ducks, so I guess it's ripping off the plot, but since I mentioned the movie, then it's fine. I mean, it's not like that plot was very original anyway, because it's not like Bad News Bears hadn't come out several years before. But if he ever ends up switching his community service to the football team, coaching that rather than picking up dog turds, which is what he was doing originally. Honestly, they never dive into the logistics of his community service, and we don't even care. What are we here for? We're here to see Snoop Dogg be himself. We're here to see some raunchy humor from the children, which there's actually quite a bit of. I haven't seen this much swearing from children since Good Boys. There's really not much else to it. Yeah, it's just the children swearing, getting into trouble, and there's even the scene at one point where they're drinking. These are like 10-year-olds, and they're at the party that's being held at Snoop Dogg's home. Not Snoop Dogg, Jason with 2 J's. Okay. Point is, they're drinking beer, and there's really no consequences to this. Like, I actually fully expected that to be the moment where there's going to be that, misunderstanding, and then, the team would have to be done with him, but then the team would want him back, or he would have a change of heart or something, but that actually doesn't happen. That scene is pretty much pointless. It's just there to, I guess, be funny, but there's also nothing about it that ends up being all that funny. They just drink, and then there's nothing really goofy or peculiar or consequences to that. It just happens. And that is pretty much the entirety of this movie. It is going through the motions. Actually, to even say it's going through the motions is it's giving it too much credit, because really it's not even trying to do much of what you've seen from these types of movies before. It's not doing the usual tropes, because there's not really much of a story here. The things that you think will be the driving and very generic storyline of the movie don't really end up going together. Like, he has a connection with his former coach that he's maybe going to take some inspiration from. And he does very loosely, but there's only like 1 or 2 scenes with this coach. And this coach is played by George Lopez, and he's given almost no material to work with, which is unfortunate, because having seen Blue Beetle, I've been kind of hoping for the George Lopez resurgence, and this movie gives him nothing to work with. It's really too bad. Snoop Dogg has this relationship with the former classmate of his, the mom of one of the football players, but even that is brushed over. There's not really much of a connection between them. In fact, there's not really much of a resolve to that either. They don't really do much with it in the end of the story. There's not a lot of scenes focusing on their relationship. It doesn't even seem like a relationship is building between them. So there you go. I mean, you got all these generic tropes in there, the kind of stuff you've seen from these movies before, and they don't really have any twist on it. And for the most part, they're not even really diving into that and making it the story. There's just no story to this. There is a misunderstanding. It's only when Snoop Dogg is offered a job. Sorry, Jason with 2 J's. He's offered a job with Fox Sports. And I'll give the movie credit. Like, it actually is the legit Fox Sports. Like, it's the actual Fox Sports guys. They got Terry Bradshaw in there. They got Michael Strahan. And it looks like it was shot on their actual stage. So it doesn't feel fake or created. Like, it's the legit Fox Sports. And Snoop Dogg ends up being one of the sportscasters on there, but he has to leave his job as the coach of this football team in order to take this job. And it only just leads to more questions because, one, I mean, why does the timing have to be this way? There's really no reason that they couldn't figure out a way out of this. And the other thing is his community service done? Like, he's still coaching this team, which I still don't know if that ever ended up becoming his community service or not. But doesn't he have to finish that, or is he just able to dip out whenever he wants to go take this Fox Sports job? It's also insane that he was offered this Fox Sports job to begin with. Like, there's no build up to this. It really comes out of nowhere. You never get a sense of this, like, podcast that he's working on in order to hopefully get recognition in the football community again, and then eventually get this dream job of his. You never know if that, like, podcast takes off. Like, he becomes popular himself because of the coaching of this football team. It becomes like a social media sensation, but you never know if, like, the podcast is doing better. The angle with the podcast feels a little dated because the idea that he could just start a podcast and become successful enough to end up on Fox Sports seems pretty ridiculous. And some of this writing does feel dated because they're, like, referencing Game of Thrones. It's because the kids are watching it, and, like, the whole point is that, oh, it's crazy that these kids are watching something as raunchy as Game of Thrones. But at the same time, it's like, wait, why are they watching Game of Thrones? It's not because it's raunchy. It's that, like, the show's pretty old at this point. And why would 10-year-olds be watching that show? Isn't there, like, other raunchy shows currently on the air that they would more than likely be watching? Movie's inappropriate, so, I mean, that stuff lands, I suppose. But, I mean, like, it's that common thing where you can't just have kids swearing on screen and that's, like, where all your humor derives from. You actually have to write jokes. And there's a few jokes in there. There's a few times I laughed. But for the most part, it's just missed opportunity after missed opportunity. It sounds like Snoop Dogg does have a passion for football. He even has a program set up that goes to public schools and gets kids invested in sports like football. So, I mean, this is like something he's very passionate about. And I feel like a movie about that would have been more interesting than what we got here. I mean, even then, it sounds like there is a documentary about that, exactly. So, just don't see the point in making this fictionalized movie about this wide receiver who I guess is a failure nowadays, but he's still living in this mansion. There's no talk about if he's, like, running out of money or... Still, I laughed a few times, but just not enough to make the movie worth recommending. I would give it 2 out of 5 stars. I mean, Snoop Dogg is a charming personality. I mean, you can't help but like watching him perform, even if the movie itself isn't that great.